Dead Alice Valuations are delighted to welcome you to another Article from the Experts. In this episode, art and antique specialist Stephanie Connell delves into the rich history of tennis memorabilia, tracing the sport's evolution from its 12th century origins to the modern era.
British summer is here. Time for strawberries and cream as sports fans head to the All England Lawn Tennis and Croquet Club for the most historic tournament in the tennis calendar. The 2024 Wimbledon Championships have arrived. With Wimbledon and tennis in mind, we'll be looking at the sport's history and some of the most interesting pieces relating to tennis on the open market in recent years. Tennis has a fascinating and long history, dating back over 800 years. The sport can be traced back to 12th century France and the game of jeu de paume. Players of this earliest form of the sport used their hands to hit the ball. European monarchs took to the sport and courts could be found throughout the continent, with courtiers and royalty competing. Louis X enjoyed it and is one of the earliest known players of the game of the paume. During the 15th century, tennis courts could be found in the Burgundian court and several of the Italian courts. The sport we would today describe as real tennis, or court tennis and royal tennis, can be seen as a closer precursor to the modern sport of lawn tennis. The racket became a key component of the game, having been introduced from the 16th century. British monarch Henry VII and later Henry VIII both played real tennis. In 1530, Henry VIII had a court built at Hampton Court and enjoyed playing at a number of his other palaces. French monarchs François I and Henri II were also notable early players. A series of old master paintings illustrate the growth of tennis in royal palaces. During the 16th century, Flemish painter Lucas Gasel, circa 1485 to 1568 or 9, produced a number of works on the biblical theme of episodes from the story of David and Bathsheba. These works were unusual for their inclusion of then-modern sporting pastimes within the landscape. One such example was sold at auction by Bonhams in July 2011. The grounds of the Renaissance Palace with episodes from the story of David and Bathsheba. The work features one of the earliest depictions of a tennis court, with a rope for a net and a tiled floor. Coincidentally, the painting also includes another game in progress, an early form of croquet. The work eventually achieved £624,000, including buyer's premium, no doubt due to its important sporting history. The earliest known book relating to tennis, Tratto del Gioco della Palla, was written by Italian Antonio Sciano de Salo, 1524 to 1616, and first published in 1555. The text, written in 3 parts, occasionally appears on the open market. In November 2013, Christie's London sold a bound copy in a single volume for £11,875. Despite tennis's reputation as the sport of kings, by the early 19th century it had fallen out of fashion and had been declining in Britain since the days of Puritan rule during the interregnum. The later game of rackets, fives and badminton all help form the creation of tennis today. The modern game of lawn tennis, or simply tennis as we would call it, was developed in the mid-19th century. Its invention is often credited to Major Walter Clopton Wingfield, who from 1874 sold sets that included all of the equipment needed to play the sport. More recently, friends Major Thomas Henry Gem, known as Harry Gem, a solicitor, writer and soldier from Birmingham, and Juan Batista Luis Aguero Pera Rofila, known as Aguero Pera, a Spanish-born merchant who lived in the West Midlands since the age of 4, have been credited as the forerunners to Wingfield. The pair played a game of rackets locally, and having become frustrated by the cost and complexity, decided to make some alterations. Modern research suggests they began experimenting in 1859. The pair chose to play their game outdoors on Pera's croquet lawn, with rules developed from similar games. They founded, alongside 2 local doctors, the Leamington Club in 1874, renamed Leamington Lawn Tennis Club, the first lawn tennis club. Major Walter Clopton Wingfield was a Welsh army officer and inventor. Importing bouncing rubber balls from Germany as part of his sets was a notable development. His game, originally called sferistiki, was ideal for those who owned a croquet lawn. The sets he created included all of the equipment required to play tennis and directly led to the popularity of lawn tennis. Wingfield's very early sets were retailed by French & Co. and have occasionally appeared at auction. In October 2019, Sferistiki, or lawn tennis set, was sold at Shropshire auctioneers Trevanion and Dean. The remaining contents included 3 rackets manufactured in 1874 and was estimated at £3,000 to £5,000, eventually selling for a hammer price of £17,000. The All England Lawn Tennis and Croquet Club opened in Wimbledon during July 1868, simply as the All England Croquet Club. Lawn tennis was introduced in 1875, with the first gentlemen's competition being held in July 1877, resulting the following year in the name change to include lawn tennis. Memorabilia relating to the early days of Wimbledon is rare and pieces highly sought by collectors. In September 2021, a programme for the tournament held at the All England Croquet and Lawn Tennis Club Wimbledon on the 5th to the 12th of July 1880 was sold at Graham Budd auctioneers. Carefully inscribed on the back page with the winners of each match, it sold for a hammer price of £6,500. This year marks 140 years since the first Wimbledon ladies' singles and gentlemen's doubles tournaments held in 1884. By the late 19th century, lawn tennis had become popular internationally and tournaments were being held globally. A poster recently sold by Swan Auction Galleries in New York was described as the first American tennis poster promoting a tournament. Dating from 1896, the poster advertised the Western Lawn Tennis Tournament held at Kenwood Country Club in mid-July. This stylish lithograph, designed by Edward Penfield, fetched $11,250, including buyer's premium. The early 20th century brought tennis notable international players who could be defined as sports stars. French multi-Grand Slam winning sportswoman Suzanne Lenglen, 1889 to 1938, was such a player. Lenglen arguably redefined what it was to be a female sportsperson. She changed tennis fashion, wearing clothes practical for playing tennis rather than meeting the conventions of the day, such as corsets. The decision allowed her more freedom of movement. Photographer Jacques-Henri Lartigue, 1894 to 1986, famed for capturing of sports events, took a series of photographs of Lenglen training. These images, extremely evocative of the period, capture Lenglen's playing style. In October 2017, Phillips Auctioneers New York sold an example of this series, a gelatin silver print signed by the photographer, for a total of $13,750. By the 1930s, Wimbledon had become a hugely important event in the British sporting year. Tennis and its style fit perfectly with the Art Deco age. This is reflected in pieces for the modern home created during this period. Designers such as ceramic artist Clarice Cliff express this in their work. In March 2024, West Midlands auctioneers Fieldings sold a Clarice Cliff 2-person early morning breakfast set in the tennis pattern design for £7,200. On the open market, pieces from key players of the 1930s intermittently emerge. In 2013, auctioneers Heritage in America sold the Wimbledon Gentlemen's Singles Trophy given to American tennis champion Ellsworth Vines. It sold for $47,800, including buyer's premium. Today, some of the most famous sporting figures of the 1920s and 30s are recognised by the wider general public due to the fashion labels carrying their names. Two legends are French player René Lacoste and British player Fred Perry. Frederick John Perry, 1909 to 1995, had a prolific tennis career, winning 8 Grand Slams, including 3 consecutive Wimbledon singles titles. Prior to Andy Murray's win in 2013, Fred Perry was the last British player to win a gentleman's singles title in 1936. His gold winner's medal, awarded for this victory over Gottfried von Cram in that tournament, was offered at auction in June 2021 by Graham Budd. The piece sold for a hammer price of £20,000. By the late 20th century, tennis was able to hold and influence more broadly. In September 1973, tennis icon Billie Jean King played an exhibition match against a male player and former Wimbledon champion Bobby Riggs. The game has since been dubbed Battle of the Sexes. The competition was adapted into the 2017 movie of the same title, starring Emma Stone and Steve Carell. The two players competed in Houston for $100,000 in prize money. Billie Jean King won the match in straight sets. A notable piece of memorabilia from the contest was sold by Bonhams New York in December 2017, the racket used by Billie Jean King during the match. With a portion of the proceeds being donated to the Women's Sports Foundation, the lot sold for $125,000 including buyer's premium. As the influence of the sport has continued to expand, objects have been given names to capture their tennis connection. This is true of the eternity bracelet or line bracelet, often referred to as a tennis bracelet. It is believed that the term tennis bracelet was coined after an incident during the US Open match in 1987. Chris Evert, winner of 18 women's Grand Slam titles, stopped her match to retrieve a missing diamond line bracelet, therefore changing the name. The 21st century has produced some of the greatest players in tennis history and therefore Wimbledon history. Serena Williams, Roger Federer, and Rafael Nadal, for example, have all proved to have influence far beyond tennis. In 2021, Roger Federer held 2 auctions from his career at Christie's in aid of his foundation. Among the notable lots during the online and live auctions were 3 rackets used during the 4th round, quarterfinals and finals of the Wimbledon Championships in 2019. The set were estimated at £7,000 to £10,000, but achieved an estimate smashing £162,500. Similarly, Rafael Nadal's racket used during the French Open final in 2018 and again during the Wimbledon semi-finals in the same year, sold earlier this year at Sotheby's. The piece, which was signed by the player, achieved a total selling price of just over $33,000. While the tennis racket used by Novak Djokovic to win the 2011 Wimbledon Championships sold in September 2023 at Graham Budd Auctioneers for £36,000 hammer price. Fashion and accessories continue to be one of the areas in which tennis is hugely influential. Watchmaker Richard Mille approached Rafael Nadal in 2008 about working on a watch for the player. Nadal, who did not wear a watch, was initially unconvinced by the idea. Richard Mille went on to design the RM27, a lightweight watch perfected to the player's specification. In May 2024, Bonhams Hong Kong offered a rare limited edition prototype Richard Mille Rafael Nadal RM2701 produced circa 2014. It achieved 9.1 million Hong Kong dollars, the equivalent of just over £900,000. The Wimbledon tournament has been connected to the Rolex brand for over 40 years, and since they first sponsored the competition in 1978. The popular Rolex Oyster Perpetual Datejust is recognised by collectors as the Wimbledon design due to its close association with the championships. These watches appear at auction regularly. In November 2023, Druitt sold a stainless steel bracelet example produced circa 2022 for a hammer price of £7,000. Now on to this year. Memorabilia from future sporting icons is something to look out for. Pieces relating to younger players competing in this year's Wimbledon Championships are pursued by collectors. In April 2024, a tennis ball signed by the 2023 men's singles champion Carlos Alcaraz was offered at Sotheby's. Used during the US Open tennis in 2022, the ball achieved a total selling price of $1,524. Wishing all those visiting the championships this year a fantastic fortnight.
Thank you for listening. You can read this article and many more at devaluations.co.uk. Search for Doerr Dallas to find us on Instagram and LinkedIn, where our team will keep you updated on market trends and our valuation service. For more details on our valuation service, please call us on 01883 722 736 or email inquiries@doerrvaluations.co.uk.